Welcome to Make Today Count, your 20 minutes of fresh conversation served up to inform, educate and inspire an abundant life. I'm your host Ross Dean, and each episode I chat to thought leaders, influencers and experts in their game who all have one thing in common: the desire to go that extra mile, pushing against the status quo to create a richer life for both themselves and those around them, powered by compassion and driven by the need to leave the world that little bit better than when they arrived. Okay, hi guys, and welcome back to episode 11 of Make Today Count. And today I'd like to welcome Katrina Love. Katrina Love is a positive mindset coach, LIFECHECK therapist, Columnist, motivational speaker, and international corporate trainer. She's the author of LIFECHECK, The Later Data, From Heartbreak to Happiness, as well as being a founding member of Happy People Solutions. Her philosophy and techniques are forged through personal life experiences of trauma and vicarious trauma, and the impact that has on the quality of everyday life and relationships with ourselves and others. Combining her experience as a qualified integrative psychotherapeutic counsellor.
That's easy for you to say.
I know. As I like the free-flowing nature of our conversation, I will carry on, Katrina, and life coach, and she has developed a pioneering personal development program that enables groups and individuals to learn how to reset their negative thought patterns, old behaviours, and bad habits. What do you reckon about that, Kat?
Well, thank you so much for inviting me, and I'm really looking forward to this.
This has been a really great conversation I've really been looking forward to, and as we approach the Christmas period, I know there's going to be lots of excitement running around, and people are going to be really festive and feeling happy about lots of different things. But what I want to touch upon today is kind of some of those other bits and pieces where maybe there's some kind of stresses going on in people's lives. And what I'd really love from this conversation is to kind of get some really actionable tips for people to take away, so that when they move into the festive season over the next couple of days, they're in the kind of a better place to do that. And so thank you for your time this evening, Katrina. Before we kind of get into the conversation, what I'd love to do, if people haven't come across the work that you do before, I'd love to get a sense of kind of a little bit about your background and how you got to where you are today.
Well, I started really in training quite a few years ago, looking at corporate training. And then I realized by the way that people were treated, the results were very, very different. So I started training corporates with a really positive vibe, and the results were just totally spectacular. So while all this was going on, my youngest son, who was just before his third birthday, happened to be in the most horrendous accident. And I think this really changed the very essence and soul of me. I had to, well, first of all, I had to wait to see whether he would live, and then with him, grow with him as he, suffered the consequences of this trauma. So both myself and my eldest son, and he was just before his 6th birthday, suffered the most terrible post-traumatic stress disorder. And all the while I was looking after my youngest boy. And this really changed everything about me. And it changed my little family unit. And I absolutely had to do a complete shift in the way that I thought. And so as time progressed and my son needed surgery, and, all these trials and tribulations were going on, including at a certain point he got meningitis, and there were a lot of very near misses to death with him. I mean, it was just such a horrendous time.
Yeah.
But what I did was I started to observe myself and started to look at what techniques and things that I used in day-to-day life served me and helped me. And as time passed by, I started to do coaching with people. And I realized that there was actually a pattern in becoming better, in refocusing myself, in becoming aware of what triggered me. So I started to write a program, my LifeCheck program, which is now probably what I'm best known for. And so that was the base of it all. And then later I came back to England and I trained as a psychotherapeutic counsellor, and then added all my different skill set together as a trainer, as a therapist, and as a life coach, and working with trauma, but at the same time showing people how to actually rewrite and reprogram the way they think. So when I work with people, it is with the deepest passion, because this is my life. This is what I've experienced.
It's really interesting when I kind of speak to people on the show, and that, you know, where they are now and the kind of the directions that they're moving in has all come from some kind of adversity in their lives, whether it's from, you know, trauma, like you say yourself, maybe it's from different crossroads, I guess, they come in their lives. Is that something you kind of see with clients as well? Is it kind of that they just come to a point where they think, you know, I've come to a point now where there's just too much and I need to change in some way, but they're just not quite sure as to what they need to do?
Well, that's a really, really good question. People often come to me when the pain is too much.
Sure.
And they cannot live with this particular pain or stress. And it plays upon their mind, and it actually ruins the quality of their life. So often people will come to me and they'll say, you know, I'm living, but I want to be alive. I actually want to experience being alive and being happy. And this is what we start to look at. And again, like you mentioned, I mean, a lot of extraordinary things are built upon the difficulties that we experience. There are different kinds of trauma. Therapeutically, we discuss the big T trauma, which is the trauma that is like, boom, it's the death, it's the desertion, it's the betrayal, it's the illness, it's the accident. And then there's something we call the small T trauma, which is a kind of drip kind of trauma, of bullying and abuse and things like that. It could be an extenuated illness or something like this. But the small T trauma has as much impact long term as the big T trauma. And I really believe that when people manage to survive a trauma, you know, they can go on to really amazing things, because they can use the trauma as the benchmark to what they have survived. And therefore the day-to-day tasks look a lot smaller. I suppose what I'm trying to say is, when there is a trauma in your life, we have an extraordinary perspective of life from a completely different angle that we might not have had before.
No, I can certainly vouch for that. And in those periods of time when, you know, you just think it's the worst thing in the world, and often it is, you know, these things it can be, you know, horrific, but in hindsight, once you pass through that and you can get some help and you can get through the other side, they're really, you know, in a lot of circumstances, they're blessings in a way, because they take you into a more of a fruitful life. You know, you move into areas where you never thought you'd be able to go before.
It's so funny you say that, Ross, because one of the things that I do, I look at over the last 12 months, and I will say to people, right, we're going to look at the worst things that happened in the past 12 months, and then we're going to look at the best things that happened. And so you end up with people, they'll go through the worst things that happened, and they'll say, and my relationship breakup was the worst thing that happened to me in the past 12 months. And then I say, okay, now let's look at the good things that happened in the last 12 months. And interestingly, that same relationship breakup will come on to, and I got out of that really negative relationship. So it is very interesting. We often do have the opportunity to grow from these things. But I also like to use trauma as a benchmark, because if we can survive on the worst days, you know, what do we have to worry about?
I know. I know. And I guess for a lot of people, if they've been feeling a certain way for a period of time, it just becomes their norm, I'm guessing. Sometimes it's hard for them to kind of recognize that there is something else, because if they've been experiencing something for a period of time, it's just like, this is my day to day and this is how it is. It must be kind of difficult for some people to kind of get their head around some of that.
Yes, I think so. I think we easily drop into bad habits. But again, eventually, when the pain is enough, we will want to move
Yeah,
away from where we are.
no, definitely. I want to take the conversation, as I mentioned at the top of the show, into sort of talking about the Christmas period. Now, as I said before, it's a great happy time of festivities and lots going on. But for a lot of people, it's a stressful time in lots of different areas. Why do you think the festive season is such a stressful time for some people?
Well, I think all our attention gets focused on Christmas, and there's such a build up, and there's such a huge hype, and there's lots of adverts on television telling us what we should be wearing, what we should be
Yeah,
eating, what gifts we should be giving.
yeah,
And I think there's a huge amount of pressure on us as to how we should be, with the idea from the large corporate companies that we spend. So I think to start off with, that puts a lot of pressure on people. And then you have people like me that absolutely love Christmas. We thrive. We wait 10 and a half months waiting for Christmas. And of course, I'm the first one to be dancing down the supermarket aisles looking for Christmas stuff. The minute I see it, I
yeah,
will tut and shake my head. But there's a big smile on my face. I'll be like, oh,
yeah.
disgraceful. It's earlier and earlier. If only we could wait for Easter to finish first. However, I think even if you deeply love and enjoy Christmas, there's a lot of pressure. We put ourselves under pressure to get everything perfect. We want
Yeah,
everything to be perfect. And when it's not, we're so bitterly disappointed with ourselves and with other people because they wore the wrong shirt or they let us down or the gravy had lumps in it.
yeah,
And then, of course, we get a different kind of person that really doesn't like Christmas. They're not into Christmas, perhaps
yeah,
for religious or cultural reasons.
yeah,
Or, of course, Christmas may bring up a trauma for them,
yeah.
something terrible and really sad, and they just want to avoid it.
No.
And also, I do believe as well, there's a lot of people that are alone over Christmas. And again, there are these expectations that we're sold, where the family will all be sitting down together, playing board games with party hats on. And if you find yourself alone or single over Christmas,
Yeah.
that's it's very tricky.
Mm. I guess, when I've had conversations in the last few weeks and months, kind of in the run up, and you sort of have that general chit chat about kind of, are you ready for Christmas? That line that you always come out with when you're having a chat with someone. A lot of people I've noticed that kind of say, oh, I'm not particularly looking forward to this. And then they would say, oh, this happened last year, this happened the year before, this always happens. Why do you think with some of these things, I guess the more kind of menial things, we're quite happy to kind of accept that behavior and kind of just let things go year to year in the same way? Is it just because of those kind of pressures on us from different areas, or do you kind of see anything else there?
Well, I think a lot of it, for example, if I take an example about seeing the family, some of us will go and see families because that's what we're supposed to do. You spend
Yeah,
time with your kith and kin. The trouble is, what if you don't like them? What if you don't you don't get on with them? And again, it's kind of an expected behavior sometimes. To spend time with people that might be toxic or not good for you, and there starts to be a dread. I've had coachees come to see me, and they start talking about Christmas in June
okay, wow,
because they're that concerned about, I don't want to spend it with my brother, or oh, my mother drives me, or my mother-in-law, or my, and so it goes on and on. People absolutely dread spending time with toxic people, and they feel obliged to.
Okay.
However, I would say to people, if they absolutely desperately feel obliged to see their family, which they don't have to, we do have choices about this. I
Mm.
know people will be saying, "Oh no, but Katrina, blood is thicker than water," but sometimes people just aren't good for you, and sometimes, unfortunately, we happen to have the same birth mother,
Yeah, yeah,
um,
yeah.
or it may be your parents even, or someone very close in that family circle. But if we do have to see them, if we do feel obliged to see them, first of all, I would question, is it necessary for you to see them? Weigh up your mental health against seeing this
Mm.
particular toxic person that you see. And
Yeah.
if you are going to see them, you set your boundaries in place. You will say, yes, we will pop over for X many hours, and you
Okay.
stick to those boundaries. Absolutely stick to them. And also to think about the mood state that you're in.
Mm.
You want to approach meeting, the family members, or people that from an adult perspective, not in
Okay.
not in the child, not in the angry child, or
Ah,
the
okay. Yeah.
subservient child, or the controlling kind of parent state. You want to come at
Yeah.
it as an adult, to not rise to to any
Mm.
provocation that may happen,
Mm.
but also to try and look at it almost with a curiosity, to actually see, oh no, is mom going to be doing that again this year? But almost to kind of take it with a humor, but
Yeah.
know at the same time that you're only going to be spending 2 or 3 hours there.
Yeah, that's really interesting what you said there about kind of that, going at it from a child's point of view. If you've, maybe it's something that's always happened every Christmas, and that spurns back to maybe some experience you'd had when you were little. It's so interesting, isn't it? It's still coming at it from a child's point of view rather than an adult, which we all are. It's
We absolutely do. And the danger, of
yeah.
course, with children, if we look at the idea, there's the parent adult child
Mm.
idea. If we look at that, the child, there's two types of child. There's very much a subservient child.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
I'm sorry, it's
Yeah.
not that I have an Ewok in the background. That's my dog. So sorry. So we have a subservient child,
Yeah.
which will just put their head down and say, okay, yes, I'll do what you say, very adaptive,
Mm.
doesn't want any arguments. And then of course there's the free child, which we all have in us. We all have this child state that's a lot of fun, that's very demanding. But the free child is also the part in us that gets incredibly angry and
Mm.
very sweary and foot stamping. And we know full well, 1 minute we're a properly grown up adult, and the next
Mm.
minute we've somehow turned into a foot stamping, potty mouthed
Yeah.
5-year-old.
Yeah.
And it's like, why did this happen again? But I think to make people aware that it's not just things and places that can be triggers for us being unhappy or having memories, either good or bad. People can be our triggers too. So we can literally
Okay.
be transported back in time
Mm.
and repeat the same behavior that we've always had.
Yeah, that's really interesting, isn't it? I think also,
Mm.
a different, a different circumstance would be not just in the home, but a lot of people at work, they may be having Christmas parties at work and that kind of stuff, and they may have a similar kind of thing where maybe there's people at work that they're not, overly happy to be spending time with. Would you say it's the same kind of tools can be used there, kind of bringing humour into it, limiting
Yes, but
yourself to time, and
absolutely, absolutely. It's all about self-care and self-love. And why is it? Why do we suddenly feel obliged in the
mm,
December month
yeah,
to, when someone that we have been avoiding for the other 11 months of the
yeah,
year
yeah.
invites us to, partake of
Mm.
some very bland beige food and some hideous, fake cocktail kind of
Yeah, yeah.
thing. We feel somehow there's this deep moral obligation, because
Mm.
all year long we've been in this barren place where nobody loves us and we don't get invited, and suddenly we have 20 invitations, and we
Yeah.
put ourselves under the most amazing amount of stress to go to them all. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I would also say to people, stop, take a moment, question, do you actually want to go?
yeah,
Really?
yeah.
Think about that. What would you rather be doing? What
Mm.
we tend to do very often, Ross, is we take ourselves out of the equation. And every
Yeah,
now and then we really need to stop and think, do I want to do this?
mm.
Is it good for my mental health? Is
Yeah,
there
yeah,
something I'd rather be doing?
yeah,
If you don't want to spend time with people, if you don't like the person at the office, don't go. Make
yeah.
your excuses, make them early so you're not letting people down at the last minute. But,
Mm.
be true and kind to yourself. We don't have to accept every invitation. The
Yeah,
most precious commodity that we have in our lives, I believe, is time. We
mm.
only have a limited supply of it. And furthermore, we don't know how limited that amount of
No.
time is.
Indeed. And I think it's just that, just that comfort in the ability to just say no to things. I think, sometimes like you just mentioned before, we feel compelled to accept all the invitations, even though there's people we can't stand there. And then, in the run up to that event, you'll just be worrying about it and mulling over when, that energy can be spread in different directions for some things that you do want to do, I think for a lot of people, some people don't necessarily, maybe some people don't like going to parties or certain things, and that's totally okay. And I think a lot of us feel compelled to kind of to join in on some of this stuff, when if it's not your bag, then just cancel it. Get it out of your life.
Exactly. But it is very interesting. One of the things I discuss with a lot of my coachees is the difficulty. Why is it so difficult to say that tiny,
Mm,
simple,
yeah.
2-letter word no? Why
Mm,
is it so difficult for us to say
yeah.
no?
No.
And of course, this.
And I
Sorry.
was just going to say, it can be very liberating as well, in when you do
Oh,
it.
oh, totally. When you
Mm,
it's quite interesting when you watch children. It's a kind of the terrible twos when they learn to say no, and you're thinking, I really wish I hadn't taught them that word. And they're rushing around going, no, 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 no to everything. When, when you rediscover, no, it's such an amazing word. It allows us to decide. It
mm,
allows us to be in charge. It allows us to walk away. It's a word that totally, totally makes us safe. No is a very important word that we really need to learn how to use, particularly around Christmas and the party time. No, thank you, or I'm already busy, or I
yeah.
really would have loved to, but I just can't. Just to mark your boundaries, decide what is acceptable and what isn't acceptable for you to do.
No, indeed. And with all the festivities that come with the festive season, there's a lot of planning involved with, especially if you run a household and you've got kids and all that kind of stuff. And just kind of some of that planning can just be overwhelming, in regards to getting everything done. Maybe you're on, Christmas Day, you've got to cook a lunch and you're having friends over for drinks and all this kind of stuff. I guess a lot of people kind of fall at the first hurdle because it's just kind of like, I've got so much stuff, but I just don't know what to do, what to do first, how to get help. What would you kind of say, and what tools could you give to people that are just kind of how to lessen some of that overwhelm when it comes to kind of planning the whole Christmas period?
Well, I am a great list maker. I
Okay.
love doing lists because I love ticking. I love
Mm,
ticking things off. So I would say plan early, start
yeah.
early, and start making lists. And the great thing is about Christmas, when you make a list, you can check it twice. And
As the song goes.
um, yeah, something like. Is there a song that says that? Oh, really?
I don't know, there might be.
Um, but so do a list, and there are plenty of lists to be doing. You're quite right. There's the present list. There's the card list. Are you doing cards this year? There's the food list. There's the menu list. There's the who's invited list. There are the
Mm,
parties you're going to, what outfits you'll be wearing. There are endless lists that you can do. And so start to plan early. And if you've left it till right now, quickly do it now. Write yourself a list and then follow your own advice. And
mm,
just take one step at a time, not to become overwhelmed by it all. Because, the idea, I think for me, I love cooking, but suddenly the idea of cooking, this turkey, particularly the turkey that, I've ordered for my family this year, I swear actually costs more than the first
Mm.
car I ever bought. And so suddenly there's this stress, all kinds of,
Mm.
can I fit it in the oven? Oh, have I got tin foil? I don't want it to
Mm.
be dry. Oh my goodness, my mother's coming. Oh, the potatoes better be crispy. And so
Yeah.
we start to put ourselves under this extraordinary amount of pressure.
Mm.
It's really not that important to really remember, yes, we're cooking. Yes, we're cooking a lovely meal. It could be anything. It could be chicken. It could be cheese on toast. It could be anything at all. But why are we doing it?
Mm.
We're doing it to be with people we love.
Mm.
That's kind of why we're doing it. And hopefully it can be more of an occasion. You can call in people. You can call in people to help.
Mm.
Friends hanging around the kitchen, serving you, a glass of wine perhaps, or making you
Yeah.
a strong coffee as
Yeah.
needed, while you're cooking the food. And prepare things the day before. What can you prepare? Can you peel the potatoes? Can you cross the Brussels sprouts? Just take your time. It's not really so important. Don't be
Mm.
overwhelmed. Just step by step, and always, always ask for help. We
Mm.
don't have to be the martyrs of our own kitchen.
Mm.
We can ask people for help wrapping. There are people like me that we thrive on Christmas, and we're waiting for someone to say, hey, I wonder if
Yeah.
you could. Oh yeah, right, I'm here. Lots of people love it.
I, th- I
But
think.
to
I
be
think.
kind to yourself, totally.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point you made there about asking for help. And I think because I think if we're hosting, sometimes we kind of think, we've got to sort it all out. You're coming to our house, you need to be looked after, blah, blah, blah. But, people want to get involved. Maybe they don't want to just be sitting there doing something. They want to kind of actively help. And if you can kind of pull them in, and just having that kind of hustle and bustle around the kitchen of getting people involved, having your uncle doing the sprouts, or your sister doing helping with the turkey, something like that. Just bringing people into it. I think that almost creates a kind of an added level of connection on that day.
Totally, because this is, for me, this is Christmas. Christmas is the
Mm.
opportunity to spend time with people I love. And I suppose
Mm.
it's very much to put aside that time to show people, that
Mm.
you care, and that you love them, and you haven't spoken to them for so many weeks, but actually they've been in your mind. And here's a
Yeah.
card, or here's a gift I saw, and it reminded me of you, or I thought you'd
Yeah.
like it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But to remember, is it really about the gift? Is it really
Mm.
about the turkey? Or are you
Mm.
actually going to remember that evening when you played a ball game and
Mm.
you laughed so much you fell off the chair? Or,
Yeah.
you know, what is it? What are
Mm.
you trying to achieve from Christmas? Take away perfect. Perfect isn't going to happen at Christmas.
Yeah.
Life
Yeah.
happens at Christmas.
Yeah. Yeah.
Chaos reigns, and that's the fun of Christmas. Or is that just at my house? I don't know. But
No.
from what I've heard,
Yeah.
chaos tends to reign. Enjoy it. That's what
Mm.
it's all about. It's about families and grandmas and children and
Mm.
uncles and friends, and
Yeah.
we all. And one day, if it goes wrong and we drop the turkey on the floor, and the dog runs off with it, that's the thing we'll be remembering, and we'll be
Yeah.
telling our kids, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, there was one Christmas when.
Mm. Yeah, no, definitely. And we've spoken about planning there, and that's fantastic. And I think an aspect of that is around some of the kind of financial planning around Christmas as well. I was read on the news this morning that there's never been such a time where people are kind of almost feel forced to spend in lots of different areas. Whether it's hosting someone, maybe it's just in for gifts, and that in itself provides a lot of stress for I know a lot of families all over. Is there anything different that you'd kind of recommend in regards to kind of sort of managing that financial aspect, or is it just around sort of planning and list making and the stuff that you kind of mentioned before?
Well, again, I believe we're put under the hugest amount of pressure
Mm.
to buy things that we don't want and
Yeah.
that we don't need.
Yeah.
um Myself, I take the pressure off myself by, actually over the year, I will see things and buy things as I go
Okay.
along. And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
try and put a little bit of money aside
Mm.
on one of those kind of magical cards where you can have little pots of money that you can save
Yeah.
up, and
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
will put money aside each month so that
Yeah.
it will mount up, because yes, we will spend more, but what is it we want? The material gifts we give will only provide a certain amount of happiness.
Yeah.
Will you actually remember the gift you were given 2 or 3 years ago,
Mm.
or will you remember the kindness and the love
Mm.
that it was given with? We
Yeah.
need to really pay attention to what the real treasures in life
Mm.
are. And like I mentioned, the most valuable commodity for me would be time
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
health and love. And there are so many different real treasures.
Mm.
I think often we're just given so many things that we really don't even want or need, when perhaps we would rather that our friend came round, and instead of
Yeah.
giving us something that we really don't, another pair of bed socks, we'd
Yeah.
rather they were there helping us chop the potatoes, chatting about stuff, or different gifts that have
Yeah.
have a different value, maybe making a wreath for the door,
Yeah.
or a playlist for somebody, or
Mm.
a jam in the summer. The really simple things are so magical and lovely.
Yeah. It's funny you should say that. We've actually adopted a similar thing in that, we have friends that we've got young children, and we've got friends that have got young children. As they grow up, it comes the beginning of December, and you sort of say, what does so-and-so like? What would they like for Christmas? And you get to a point where you get, they have a lot of the things. Fortunately, you're lucky to have those things. And so what we've started to do is to say, look, we won't do that, but we'll meet, and we'll, just before Christmas, we'll go and have breakfast, or we'll have lunch together and just catch up and just enjoy that time together around the table, having some food and that kind of stuff. And that's worked really well, actually. So you're not ending up just buying stuff for the sake of it because you want to give a gift. We're saying, look, let's do it this way and spend some time and have a catch up before Christmas. And that's worked really well for us. And that's just
No,
another way.
totally. And I'm sorry, but
No, no.
a lot of people love, I was laughing so much last year. I wanted to give my children an experience, you
Mm,
know. So in the end, we ended up going to see Ed Sheeran last
okay.
year.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
I couldn't think of anything in the world, quite frankly, that would top that. And I was speaking to my eldest son, and I'm saying, I thinking of doing like another experience. We could go to, I said, what do
Mm.
you want? I mean, we could go to a different concert. And he's going, mm-hmm. I said, oh, we could do something in London. And he's saying, yes, or you could buy me a jumper. And I said, or we could, and I was listing off all these amazing things we could do. And all I could kind of vaguely hear him saying is, or you could buy me a grey jumper. Yeah, I would like a grey jumper.
Yeah.
So,
Listen to me.
yeah, please, don't do it again. Just get me a grey jumper, for goodness sake. But also ask people perhaps what they want. It really might be that tea that you're talking about, or it might be
Yeah.
going out to brunch together,
Yeah.
or it might be that one day you'll say, this summer, we're going for a picnic, or I'm doing a barbecue, or
Mm.
there's so many things that we can do that aren't necessarily stuff. And particularly as we get older, we have all the stuff we want.
Oh, goodness. Yeah.
There's just so much stuff. One of my favorite gifts last year, actually, I was given a Spotify account.
Okay.
And I
Yeah.
have to tell you, that was one of the best gifts. There's that Ewok again. One of the best gifts I was given was a Spotify account. I
Yeah.
absolutely love that music. I have been enjoying that all year long. And
Oh,
I'm frantically
fantastic.
hoping that my son won't let it end after a year.
He's going to renew. He's going to renew it for you this year.
Yes, totally. Just think outside the box. It's actually just about the joy we bring to
Mm,
people. It's not necessarily at all about stuff.
yeah. And I think, sometimes if maybe we haven't adopted some of these approaches before, and we're kind of, we're dreading dealing with things, for this next year, that we experienced last year. There are some other ways that we try and cope with things, in the form of maybe overeating or using alcohol in some certain ways. What would you, because I think from experience in sort of that kind of thing, it just kind of leaves you feeling a little more empty afterwards than you did before. What kind of advice would you kind of give around that?
Well, totally, because what we try and do when we have exposed ourselves to the toxic people, or we've overspent, or we put ourselves under an incredible amount of pressure, when we really did we need to, we will self-medicate. And you're right, we'll self-medicate with perhaps food, alcohol, drugs, gambling. There are so many things that we can do. And I suppose often there'll be more than the issue of Christmas.
Okay.
There will be something deeper that will be being triggered by the moment of Christmas, or a belief that we have about ourselves. And one of the most common beliefs that we have about ourselves is that we're not good enough.
Yeah.
And this is a belief that will spring up throughout our lives from time to time. And there's this brilliant quote by Henry Ford. And Henry Ford says, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
Yeah.
So basically what we do is we evidence-base what we believe all day long. So we might believe that the world is a beautiful, happy, shiny place, and we'll go through our lives evidence-basing that it is. Or we might believe that the world is dark and nasty and dangerous. And again, we will go through our day evidence-basing that. And so if we're wandering around with that very common script of not being enough or feeling worthless, when things go wrong, we'll blame ourselves. Well, the turkey was dry because I'm not good enough at cooking, or there was an argument because I'm not good enough at communicating. And so there are all these things, and very often these will be the causes and triggers for the self-medication that we'll be doing. So it'll probably be deeper than Christmas.
No, definitely. And I think, I remember one of the things that you mentioned in your article, which was really, I really wanted to mention today, was just kind of taking time out for yourself during those Christmas periods as well. Would you like to speak a little bit about that?
Well, that's the most ridiculous idea I have ever heard. I mean, time for yourself at Christmas, you having fun, quinoa? No way. What are you talking about? Yes, it's about us. It's about self-care. It's actually about our flow time. Now, having flow time is incredibly important. Flow time is when we're enjoying something so much. We just get lost in the moment. Perhaps for you and I, it might be our job. So I might start a session with someone, and I look up and the clock says an hour's passed, and I think, hang on a minute, and is that right? Or I think it was Einstein. He talks about the theory of time and relativity, and he says if you don't believe me, try spending the afternoon with a pretty girl. Time flies. So there is this. We need this time. We actually need. It's our holiday too. It's time for us to enjoy ourselves. It's time for us to slow right down and start to become mindful, to look at what is going on around us. The fact that the family is there. The funny side of the dog actually grabbing the turkey, but someone wrestling it down to the ground and bringing it back. It's the gift, the very thoughtful gift of, I don't know, Christmas pudding that someone has made for you, or it might be the bubbles in the sparkling water that you're having, or the frost on the ground outside. It really is to slow down, enjoy all the things going on around you, but also to do what you want to do. Is it
Mm.
time for you to go and see a friend? Is it time for you, you know what, just to curl up on your bed and read a book, or
Mm.
sit with the children and watch a Christmas film, or take the time to have, an extraordinary fizzy bath bomb, or paint
Mm.
your nails, or whatever it is. It's for us to enjoy ourselves. Very often, we're so busy concentrating all the time on how is everybody else and is everyone having a great time. We don't stop to ask, how am I feeling about this? Am I enjoying this?
Yeah.
Or am I getting something out of this relationship? We don't think to do that. We just
Mm.
concentrate on everyone else's happiness.
Mm.
But we also need to be, the main actors and characters in
Mm.
our own film, in our own life films. We need to be important. And
Definitely.
again, it's kind of like the Ryanair school of philosophy, that if we go through turbulence, the oxygen mask will
Mm. Yeah.
come out of, I don't know, the compartment above your head. And
Yeah.
they say, if you are traveling with young children,
Yeah.
you put your own mask on first.
Yeah.
And this is what we need in life. We really need the self-care and self-love. It's not selfish. We need to look after ourselves first and make sure
Mm.
that we're okay, that we're healthy, that we've eaten, so that we can give the love and time and energy to other people.
Mm. And I know we're talking about Christmas, today, but this just accounts for everything, every day, every day of every day of the year, just to have that time, amongst work and family, just to concentrate on yourself. And for different people, it's different things. Like exactly what you said, it could be listening to music, it could be walking the dog somewhere, it could be, whatever brings you joy in that respect. And I think that's so important that we concentrate on not just at Christmas, but throughout the year.
Yes, no, it's incredibly important. And we need to remember, and anyone that works with me will be so tired of hearing me say this, but the way that we treat ourselves is the benchmark to how other people will treat us.
Mm. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's incredibly important. The way we treat
Mm.
ourselves is the benchmark to how other people will treat us. If
Yeah.
we look after ourselves, if we look after our body, if we're,
Mm.
eating clean food, if we have our boundaries in place and we can say no when we're not happy with something, this sets the precedent of how people will treat us. If we treat
Mm.
ourselves badly, we will allow other people to do the same.
Mm.
So it's incredibly important to put yourself first, and care about yourself.
When you just said that, I could visualize all these people listening to this podcast and thinking their mouths open. Oh, yeah, that really relates to, and that's so important, though, isn't it? We set our standards by the way that we look after ourselves, and that's a really fantastic way of putting it.
Well, it's true, and it's interesting as well because I work on a project with a friend of mine, and it's called the Later Data, and we've
Mm.
done classes in the Later Data, and
Mm.
we talk about the fact, if you're turning up on a date and you turn up and meet someone for the first time, if that person cannot look after themselves,
Yeah.
there's no way that they're going
Mm.
to be able to look after and adapt and change
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah.
We need to be aware. We need to be aware of how we treat ourselves. We need to be aware of how other people also treat themselves. If they treat themselves badly, there's no way they're going to treat you nicely. If they treat themselves badly, you will be treated badly too. So
Mm.
I think and we can't control how other people are going to treat us, but we can control how we treat ourselves. And I think, part of Christmas for me is just, it's the spirit of love and kindness, but let that start with you. Be loving and kind to yourself.
Mm. And that's the thing, isn't it? We, you know, often we would never treat anyone else in the way that we treat ourselves. Sometimes the way that we speak to ourselves, the way, the neglect that we would give to ourselves. Sometimes it's amazing, really, isn't it? That we would choose to do that to ourselves first.
But it's amazing because often, I will talk to people, and they will have incredibly low self-esteem. And I'll
Mm,
say, well, do you know where that came from? And they might say, well, it might have come from my parents or my siblings, or I might have been bullied at school. And I'll
mm,
say, okay, but that might have been 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Who bullies you now?
mm,
And the
yeah,
answer will be me. I do.
yeah,
I'm the
mm,
one that calls myself a fat pig when I go to eat a packet of Pringles. I'm the one that will
mm,
judge myself. I am the one that name calls and labels myself.
mm,
We do that. So I think, it's a really good idea to become aware of ourselves and what we do. And I'd also like to point out, when we hear somebody labeling other people in an
mm,
unkind way,
mm.
that we need to know that they will also label themselves like
Yes, yeah, yeah. It's a great point.
that.
And and that's something that's spoken about a lot in that with whether it's bullying or other kind of um, disrespectful ways in ways in which people treat other people. It's not about you generally. It's about them.
Oh, totally. It
Mm,
says everything about them. And I
mm,
think the idea as well is to be aware, because emotions, both good and bad, are contagious.
yeah,
So
yeah,
if
yeah.
if we if we hang about with people that are happy and positive, we will come away from that meeting
Mm,
feeling happy and positive. You
mm,
know, in the same way that anger
yeah.
is contagious too. You might be sitting at the roundabout in Martlesham, and someone will give you a very rude sign, and suddenly you've gone from
Yeah.
listening to Michael Bublé to to acute anger.
Yeah.
How dare that person do? Who the hell do they think they are?
Mm,
And we take on that anger. It's like some terrible kind of virus.
mm,
What we need to do is be very aware of what belongs to us and
mm,
what doesn't. We don't need to pick up other people's negative emotions. We can leave that with them. We just need to be kind. We need to look after ourselves. We need to be aware. And, every now and again, observe what's going on, not necessarily get involved with it all. Just
mm.
observe.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's going to be a lot of people listening to this, which are going to be able to take away so much from the conversation that we're having. But then also thinking, well, this may be an avenue that I might want to go down to and kind of start that conversation with someone. If someone's kind of looking for someone to work with, either on a kind of a therapeutic basis or a life coaching basis, what are the kind of the things to look out for when they're kind of searching for someone, Katrina?
Well, for me, look for I look for references from
Okay.
people.
Yeah.
I would like to know that my friend has worked with that person, and they were really, really good. I would say the majority of my coachees are word of mouth.
Mm,
And I think that is kind of the highest accolade you can have, when
of
somebody
course. Yeah.
recommends, they turn up and they say, wow, Ross sent me along.
Mm,
So I would look for recommendations. I would also look for qualifications. You
yeah.
know, um, you want someone that is properly qualified.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that call themselves coaches or
Mm,
counselors, but do check they're qualified. Do they have a degree? What kind of therapy or coaching do they do?
okay.
Do they specialize in trauma? Do they specialize in
Yeah.
self-esteem? There's so many. Just have a look. Do your homework and have a look.
And I guess there's no problem as well with speaking to a few, like you would do for any services day, to maybe meet with them, have a chat, to find if they're a right fit for you and all that kind of stuff as well.
Definitely. Make your mind up, give them a call and find out whether you like them.
Mm.
and ask them, if you're looking for a therapist, do they talk?
Mm.
Some therapists don't talk.
Okay.
And that, it depends what you're looking for.
Yeah.
You might want to be incredibly reflective and choose the kind of psychotherapy where the therapist will be sitting there going, and saying very, very little else.
Mm.
Or you might want something that's a lot more, a lot more communication and a
Mm.
kind of a lot more structured, in which case you may then be looking for coaching,
Mm.
where someone will chase you up and say, look,
Yeah.
I'm going to set you a task to do.
Yeah.
Think about what you want.
Mm.
But there is one thing I do want to mention, if you don't mind.
Mm. Of course.
I want to mention one of the projects that I do is with the lovely nutritionist Natasha Hodge, that you've
Exactly.
had
Who we've had on the show as
on
well.
your
Yeah.
show. Absolutely. Because part of, and this is incredibly important around Christmas,
Mm.
your good mental health is very much going to be in correlation with what you're eating
Yeah.
as well. We need to feed our brain as well
Yeah.
as our body. And our brain will need about 500 or 600 calories of
Yeah.
proper nutrients to be
Mm.
functioning properly.
Yeah.
If we're not eating the correct nutrients, our brain will start to display the same symptoms of both depression and
Mm-hmm.
anxiety.
Yeah.
There can be mood swings.
Yeah.
There can be anxiety. That there can be fogginess, not being able to remember things. We
Mm-hmm.
really need to look at what we're eating. And over this festive period, there's so many options of interesting looking beige food that have no nutritional
Yeah.
content at
Yeah.
all.
Mm.
Look for real food, because you need to have energy, and your body needs to eat good food,
Mm.
good
Mm.
healthy food. That will affect your mind. Choosing the right food makes you healthy and also will influence your happiness.
I absolutely agree. From personal experience, the last few months or the journey I've been on in regards to cleaning up nutrition, adaptive fitness, that kind of stuff, it really is a game changer. And I was a little apprehensive before because I thought it wouldn't make that much of a difference. I generally thought it was something that you could clear up in other ways, but there's so many knock-on effects. It's astounding, really. To use crude language, you put shit in, you get shit out, and that's kind of what I've learned over the past few months. You've got to look after how you're fueling your body, and it's not just from a physical fitness type way. It's also from that mental clarity, from just having it just enhances and kind of allows all these different areas to flourish in your life. It's really astounding, really.
Yeah, we need to have, for me, I really watch what I eat,
Mm.
because I want the energy.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
if I have someone, sometimes I have coaches or clients that will come at 6 o'clock in the morning, and
Yeah.
I need to be awake and alive and
Yeah.
interactive,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
be able to think. And I want to provide the same standard throughout the day,
Mm.
whether it's 11 o'clock or whether it's 7 o'clock in the evening.
Yeah.
I've been working today since 7 o'clock, so we're kind of heading towards a 12-hour day for me now. But
Yeah.
I want to be vital and alive, and
Mm.
be able to think. It's incredibly, incredibly important, and for us and for our happiness, to the point, if we're eating the wrong food, we can actually even have psychosis. We can become delusional because we're not eating the right food. Can you
Okay.
imagine?
I
And
know.
sometimes I sit and I look at people in front of me and I think, how much of this is food, or how much
Mm.
of this is a mental health issue?
Yeah. Yeah. So closely connected. So closely connected in that way.
Everything's
Yeah.
connected. And don't forget, the brain doesn't know the difference between what is imagined and
Mm.
what's real. So, it can, if we think about bad, unhappy things, we will produce the cortisol and the
Yeah.
adrenaline, and the really the quite unwanted chemicals sometimes, and we'll produce them over and over and over again with the thought, because our body can't take the chance, not to be reacting in case there is a real danger. And through this stress, we actually make ourselves incredibly
Definitely.
on a plus side, of course, we can think about a happy memory, we can think
Yeah.
about a great Christmas, we can think
Yeah.
about something really fun, and we can fill ourselves with dopamine and joy, basically, over and over again. We have these choices. Our mind is very strong. We can allow our mind to choose.
For someone that kind of is maybe, as we've mentioned before, looking to work with a therapeutic counsellor or life coach, that kind of thing, and maybe they're just not aware of kind of how that works. Is it just a case of them coming in for a chat and then you kind of take it from there with the sessions and then you sort of catch up at time to time? Is that generally how it kind of works?
Well, for me, when I do coaching, I mainly work with a program that I wrote called LIFECHECK. And that will be a set number of hours,
Okay.
depending on what we find. So coaching is very proactive and pretty much starts from now.
Yeah.
I will look back over the decades to see what behavior and what reoccurring patterns keep happening.
Yeah.
And then I will start to look at somebody's script. Their negative script, we have negative and positive script. I would be looking at what their negative script is and then work on changing their negative script. I would also be looking at the negative automatic thoughts that we use, fortune telling, catastrophic thinking, black and white thinking. So I work to quite a prescriptive program that actually has extraordinarily good results. But it's horses for courses. Different coaches and different therapists will work in different ways. So for me, generally speaking, I like coaching because it's very interactive and it's much, much quicker. Therapy is much more gentle and client-led.
No, definitely. With I guess also when it comes to coaching it, let's say, for example, you're caught in a lift with someone and they say, what is the benefit of what kind of working with a life coach generally, or working with a therapeutic counsellor? How would you kind of distill that into a couple of lines? So if someone's listening to this and they're thinking, I think there's some real ways that I can make some changes in a lot of areas of my life, and I'm sort of thinking about working with someone, what would you kind of say to sort of seal the deal from that perspective?
Well, I would say to anyone that's listening to ask themselves the question, are you actually just surviving life? Is that your day-to-day living is survival?
Yeah.
Or are you loving life? Are you alive and totally enjoying life? And if you're surviving life, that's the moment to give someone a call. If you're surviving life, if you're unhappy, if you're in emotional pain, do it. Change. We have life is so beautiful and so precious. We can't afford to waste it. We don't get these days again. We can dance through doorways today. We can be enjoying today. We can be loving life today. Why put that off? There can't be anything more important really than your happiness. Your happiness and state of mind affect your body. It affects the world around you. It affects your viewpoint, who you are. It's such an important thing. We're much more happy to waste money, for example, on self-medicating, on the drugs, on the shopping, on the wine, on the cigarettes, than sort out actually what is causing us the pain and the grief. Once you go through therapy or a really good life coaching experience, you change, you become aware, your perspective changes, and it's like you untie the huge knot of anxiety or fear that you have, and you step into the sunshine. Come alive, start living. This is it. Carpe diem, seize the day. live the day, enjoy the
Definitely.
day.
This podcast is called Make Today Count, in that, the purpose being that through these conversations with the people that I have on the show, that listeners can take away some actionable tools that they can kind of take away for the next day. So the purpose being that, what small steps can I take following these conversations to maybe progress in whichever area we're chatting about. When we're talking about Christmas today, and we're kind of the festive season, and I guess we've spoken about lots of different ways and strategies that we can use. What would be kind of the small kind of first step that someone could take to just feeling generally better about Christmas, in just that one small step? Maybe if they listen to this, a few days before Christmas, they could take that next day to kind of set them on the right track. What would you say to that, Katrina?
Well, you know what? It's not just for Christmas, either the dog or the turkey. Turkey very often. The piece of advice I would give, the start of reprogramming your brain and your negative thinking, I would say, is to be grateful. You can't be fearful and grateful at the same time. So being grateful is looking at all the good things that you have in your life now, and looking at these moments throughout the day. Look for the moments of happiness. If you remember, a few years ago, we were all out there with our phones playing that Pokemon game. Do you remember?
Yeah.
And we were all trying to catch these Pokemon, and some of us were out there for hours trying to catch them. What I would be telling your listeners to do is go out there and search for things that you're grateful for. Search for moments of beauty. Gratitudes are like little tiny shiny fireflies. Catch them throughout the day. Catch the smile that someone's given you. Look at and be grateful for the fact that someone held the door open, or made you a cup of tea, or you know what, you had a good hair day, or you remembered someone's name, or there was a joke that made you laugh, or you had the most delicious something to eat. Be aware of all the tiny, amazing things that are happening, in your life. What about the sun rising? What about the patterns of the ice on your windscreen today? What about the fact that you've actually got a car this year that works? What about the fact that you have an amazing husband, or a lovely wife, or super fun children, or just sitting really still and watching a candle flicker, or sparkling lights? This is the time of year. There's so much goodwill, and there's so much pretty, shiny, sparkling things. Slow down and look at it. Take these moments of joy and, beauty, and, collect them all throughout the day, because the gratitudes we have in life, the moments that we notice, at the end of the day, are all we have. That's what we'll be remembering. Not the gift, not the overdraft, not if the turkey was dry. Just the good things. Focus on the good things. And the funny thing is, the more you look for the good things, the more you'll find. That would be my advice.
And such great advice that is. I think there's so much that the listeners are going to be taken away from today, and I just feel that we could go off on tangents and talk about so many other things, but conscious of time. Before we sort of sign off, you mentioned about LifeCheck, the program that you sort of you continually do with your clients. Anything else you've got coming up you want to chat about, or maybe the stuff with Natasha, that kind of stuff?
Right. I'd like to mention my LifeCheck programs. So these run corporately, or they run in small groups, or they run in one-to-ones. If you'd like more information, check out LifeCheck.love, LifeCheck.love. That'll take you to my website. And then Happy People, what a great project. Natasha and I have been working on this for over 2 years. It is combining really good nutrition with great mental health. And it's called Happy People because this is what happens. You start eating the right food, you start training your brain to think in the right way, And, that equals happiness. It's up to us. We need to, Natasha always talks about helping yourself to a bigger slice of life. We want a big slice of happy, healthy life. Particularly, I'm finding, as I'm getting a tad older, I want to have the energy. I want to enjoy my life, my children growing up, potentially in a few years, grandchildren. I want to be fit and healthy, and I want to enjoy my life. So we're talking about good food, and the effects of eating good food, not only on your mental health, but on how you feel about yourself, your self-esteem. There's going to on your energy levels. Also, there's bound to be weight loss and general well-being. So again, happy people. That's another thing that I would encourage your listeners to start checking out in January, in February. Go ahead, try other food programs, try the eating plans, and when they don't work, come and try happy people.
That's the tagline there, and then that's what you need.
When the others don't work, but really, absolutely. I have great faith, great group of people that we work with.
Yeah, no,
online as well, so that can be absolutely any part of the country, and that's super fun to have that support and to learn, as how great you feel when the right food is going into you.
No, definitely. Katrina, thank you so much for your time this evening. It's been fantastic to have a chat, around Christmas, because that's the time we're at, but also just to generally sort of catch up about some of these strategies, because as you say, they can be transferable to any part of our life, and they're so important. I encourage you that if you like what you're hearing this evening and you want to connect with Katrina, please do so via the websites that Katrina's mentioned, or via social media, both on Facebook and Instagram, where you can just search Katrina's name and you'll find her accounts there. I like to always finish up with it's funny that we've spoken about gratitude tonight, but just to give gratitude to yourself, Katrina. I know from mutual colleagues and through the testimonials that I see online and in other areas for you, that you're helping so many people through some tricky times, and also really helping people to sort of turn their lives around. So I just wanted to say thank you from their point of view as well, and just to give gratitude for what you're doing, because you're doing such an amazing job for so many people. So thank you for that.
You know what? That's just so lovely of you. The gift for me is seeing the change and seeing people come alive and coming happy. It's such a beautiful privilege to be able to have. So thank you so much for that.
No, you're very welcome. I'd love to have a chat another point in time. I'm sure there's another topic we can have a chat on that's going to be equally as insightful as this evening. So maybe we can set that up at another time. But guys, if you've enjoyed the conversation this evening, or whenever you're listening to this, please let us know. So if you've maybe taken some of the tools that Katrina's mentioned today and you've put them into practice over Christmas, we want to hear the feedback. So please leave a comment on the show notes page, or if you listen to this via Spotify or Apple, one of those sort of streaming platforms there, please leave us a review, please leave some comments, and also feel free to directly connect with Katrina as well. But until the next episode, we'll say Merry Christmas, and I look forward to speaking to you again on the next episode of Make Today Count. See you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.